Damn, Ghoritch is maybe one of the most heavy metal characters ever to come into Total War Warhammer 2. Look at this guy. Frickin' cyborg, giant, rat ogre, abomination mecha with an orc power claw from 40k. Like, this guy is ridiculous. He's huge, too. Look at this. These are regular rat ogres. This is actually the Regiment of Renown Fighters of Hell's Deep. They have the berserk ability that berserkers have. We're up against Warriors of Chaos, Turin himself, the Big Papa this time. We've got Poison Wind Globes, Council Guard, I believe, of course, Throt, Hungry Boy, as ever. Plague Priest for some summons, got a whole bunch of chaff scattered around. 3 Rat Ogres, including the ROR and Ghoritch. Up against Kholek, Sun Eater, a Spawn Rush. We've got 4 Spawn, including the RORs, bunch of Marauders, Poison Warhounds, Horse Masters. Just absolutely wild stuff. So right off the bat, the Spawn are going to make contact. And yeah, we're going to start tossing in those Poison Globes. Poison Wind Globadiers are basically like bombers. People kind of forgot how good they are, but here we go. This is the engagement everyone wants to see. Rat Ogres punching the crap out of Chaos Spawn. Chaos Spawn actually trade pretty well here because they just have such high weapon strength, but I've got a nice concentration of Ogres. Big old Lightning Strike does some solid damage to them. We're going to get some summons in here to saturate some extra bodies. And those Marauders are getting absolutely pounded. But here comes Ghoritch versus Kholek. Globes raining in as well. Ghoritch actually says, you know what, maybe I'll just shred a couple Marauders here. Yeah, he doesn't need to fight Kholek. He can just let his Rat Ogre buddies fight Kholek, right? So, come over here. I do get the Creature Killer and even summon another, or sorry, that's Blessed with Filth there to give poison. Summon another unit of Rat Ogres, so Kholek is just in an absolute sea of Rat Ogres. Meanwhile, had some Poison Wolf Rats come over here. We got some decent engagements on those Poison Warhounds, but the Brood Horde now is going to get a little bit exposed and isolated here. Marauder Horsemaster is going to be able to javelin him down pretty well, so we'll see. I do still have my Pocket of Globes online, though. We'll keep Ghoritch fighting Kholek here in the foreground as the Globes try and maintain their position there. So, rallied Rat Ogres, I believe. Is that the ROR? Nope. Yeah, not the ROR. They're just chilling there. Speaking of RORs, Weird Spawn are going to get in here and try and mix it up. Ghoritch, so if we take a look at him, he's an anti-infantry character. He is a character, basically, but a giant single-entity Rat Ogre obviously causes fear and terror. He's got plus 15% magic resistance in an AoE with this Blood Shield, which is quite nice. He does count as a Molder monster, so you can heal him. I've already given him 1 remoldered, I believe, from big old Throt Boy. But Council Guard, meanwhile, standing firm over here. We're going to rally to him. Of course, as a character, he will get physical resistance from the Council Guard with that Guardian, and basically that gives him 15% damage resistance if you stack that with the magic, right? Because magic plus physical resistance equals damage resistance, basically. Globes are finally going to get inundated here, but not before getting a beautiful volley into the blob of Horsemasters. Getting that drain effect. Absolutely brutal stuff. Just does a ton of HP damage. Kholek does rally, though. He's going to come back to the fight. Get back over here and try and mix it up. Ghoritch, though, gives you a kind of very strong monstrous presence that, in addition to the Swarm, I mean, just taking a look at his stats, only 30 melee defense is not great, but 68 attack. I mean, he's not a combatant on par with Kholek quite, but he's not too far off, and for a Skaven, that's very impressive. 76 charge, pretty good stuff, 530 weapon strength. Yeah, Kholek's got 540, right, in total, so, or 540, actually, so he is almost on par with Kholek, not anti-large, but 70 speed as well, 70 armor, pretty close. It has quite a bit less HP, I believe, but, of course, he has the ability to be healed by Throt, which is very powerful. Yeah, I think Ghoritch, where I see him being used most is exactly here, like against Warriors of Chaos, maybe against Tomb Kings, against Lizardmen also. If you want to go monster mashing and fight, you know, monster v monster, although he is anti-infantry technically, I think he's also going to be very strong at fighting other kind of top-tier combat monsters and characters and lords and so on, and especially given the buffs to foot characters, I'd be curious to see him tangle with like a Grimgor or, you know, Ungrim maybe. Maybe I'll have to throw that in a future video here in the next week or so. Council Guard just following up. At this point, I'm kind of just weathering the storm of javelins, trying to keep things safe. We've also got this Brood Horde back. It's kind of just here tanking damage, honestly, at this point. just kind of being annoying and providing some extra terror and everything, but Fireball comes in. It's going to hit Ghoritch. Doesn't really do too much because of his magic resistance, missile resistance. And yeah, over here, Chaos Spawn's still fighting, just keeping them bogged down to summon Clan Rats as much as I can. Used up almost all the ammunition on the globes as well, and considering these guys are only 550 points, and they have got an insane amount of work done. Turn's just going to try his best here to weather the storm, just keep those javelins paying for themselves, and he can actually do a lot of damage, especially to Rat Ogres. And Ghoritch, I mean, with that missile resistance, if I can get the Council Guard nearby, that would be nice, but the Rat Ogre's definitely looking pretty thin at this point. I think he is mostly, him and Throt, though, are mostly what's holding up this balance of power at this point. And yeah, them both being so healthy is a huge factor here. Ghoritch, let's see, how much HP have I actually healed on Ghoritch from that remolded ability? So far, yeah, I guess just the one remolded it looks like has been used. But nice lightning strike from Kholek. And finally get a decisive hit on the Globadiers. I say decisive, they still got most of their ammo out, so it's all fine by me, but here comes Ghoritch on Kholek one more time. Matched up in the open field. We're going to get the Brood Horror in there as well. Caster comes in. Throt also comes in. And there it is. Kholek goes down. I think actually, Ghoritch, I don't think he landed the killing blow. I think it was actually the nasty breath animation of that Brood Horror there, but fun stuff. Ghoritch actually didn't end up paying for himself, but just his monster presence kind of anchoring that front line, giving that extra magic resistance too, in case of burning heads and fireballs and things like that, is quite nice. You factor, I mean, it's just like a clear kind of synergy, right? You stack him with the Council Guard to get 15% damage resistance on all your characters in that area of effect, and you have a pretty strong box for characters. I would say Ghoritch, because he's so expensive, and we'll look at his cost in just a moment, you probably want to bring him always with Throt, but maybe there's a circumstance where you could pull off some builds using him plus Snitch as well. I'd be curious about that, giving Snitch some magic resistance since he's pretty squishy to magic damage, and also, you know, those are two very strong combatants that would be able to double team, you know, basically anyone. But look at these globes, man. I really think they need to nerf the effect, or at least give the Globadiers a different effect than the mortars, because considering how cheap they are, they quadrupled basically their value in terms of damage, right? Damage value, so that's a little bit insane. I mean, I guess we've seen Skaven slaves recently, the slingers at least, like kind of triple up their value, and speaking of which, one of them doubled and tripled again their value here. Just super cost effective shooting at these low armor targets like Chaos Spawn. But yeah, the Hell Pits, Rat Ogres also didn't pay for themselves. Rat Ogres, because of their leadership, often tend to run away, where they can really do what they need to, but the mass of Rat Ogres here actually ended up being pretty important, I think. Kholek was not able to really get free. We matched up well against the spawn between the Globadiers, the Slingers, and the Rat Ogres kind of all combined. Did pretty good. Brood Horror, I mean, it's only 1100 points. It got most of its value back and also tanked quite a bit of damage, which was pretty important. Helped kind of tie down a lot of those Marauder Horsemasters for a time. And yeah, Wolf Rats kind of not paying for themselves. One of them kind of paying for itself. Yeah, fun stuff. Very well played to Turin. But just to kind of finish things up with Ghoritch here, he is a beast. Definitely. We switch on over to the Skaven once again. Getting that Guardian from the Council Guard's pretty solid. This Evisceration is pretty good against infantry blobs. I just didn't necessarily want to take it there. I mean, maybe you face some heavy infantry from Chaos, but recently in this Skaven, I would expect more kind of mobile units, and spawns also were pretty common in that matchup, so I chose to cut that to save on some cost. Likewise, this Warp Frenzy is a pretty good self-buff. Extra melee attack and armor piercing, base weapon damage, always a nice little power spike. It's not too expensive either, only 142 points, but again, considering how expensive Ghoritch is baseline, I'd probably cut this. Blood Shield is nice because that's a passive. You also can take Sword of Antiheroes and Crown of Command, so if you want to stack this Warp Frenzy and Sword of Antiheroes, you certainly can do that. And I guess if you want to get healing with Ghoritch without having to take Throt, you can take the Packmaster as well, who will heal him. Probably want him on the Brood Horror to be able to keep up, otherwise he's going to Ghoritch will just outpace him super heavily. This, and then of course you can also stack this here for extra melee attack if you want, and even Skaven Brew as well, to give even more melee attack. Honestly, that's kind of overkill at that point, like way over buffing Ghoritch, but you can kind of stack some different things together, and it works okay. That would allow you to then say, take a Caster Lord. You couldn't take Snikch, I guess, because you need a Spellcaster, but you could take like Skrolk in this circumstance, or one of the Graciers. Could even take Ikit too, I guess, if you really wanted to get weird with it and take like a Doom Wheel. This is your 3 single entities right here, right? Doom Wheel, Brood Horror, and Ghoritch is definitely in that category, but is this even good? I mean, Death Frenzy, I guess, is another pretty good support spell to kind of layer on Ghoritch. But it's an interesting one. Definitely, I mean, 1750 for just him with Blood Shield, I think is pretty solid. You're not paying too much for something, and yeah, he can definitely punch right around this in terms of his cost and everything. Yeah, what else to say? I could compare him, and I'm going to show off the Mutant Rat Ogre in another replay shortly, within the next few days, but he is kind of like an ROR a little bit, Mutant Rat Ogre. He does more weapon damage and has more charge, has more HP as well and more armor, so he's just kind of better overall. Slightly lower melee attack actually than the ROR, but it has those self buffs. Lower melee defense though, which is definitely something to be wary of. 30 melee defense only for a unit that's this expensive is pretty rough. You definitely kind of got to be aware of that. And that's why keeping him near Throt for that extra melee defense buff, the Master Controller, the Remolder also for the healing, obviously going to be very good. Yeah, and the issue, my issue with him, mainly is that he takes up a hero slot, and with Skaven, all of their hero choices are very good. Like the Assassin, I mean, you're going to see him very rarely in a lot of the replays upcoming, probably in the early access. It's not because he's bad, it's just because we're playing with the new stuff. This Assassin's, in fact, very good, and I would argue that it might be better to try and swap him in and just bring a Mutant Rat Ogre rather than bringing Ghoritch. But Ghoritch is definitely very cool, probably one of my favorite unit models in the game now, I have to say. Just super, super awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again, we'll see you next time.